Hello and welcome to this week's Geek TV, the only place on the internet where it's acceptable for two grown men to spend a day debating a children's TV show. If you're anything like us, you'll have just finished watching the swashbuckling adventure of the Robots of Sherwood. Joining me here today to talk about it, as always, Morgan. Say hello, Morgan.
Hello. What
did you think of the episode? Let's dive straight in. Did you enjoy it? I've got a feeling this might divide viewers, this episode.
Well, when does a Doctor Who episode not divide fans, to be fair? No, I did enjoy this episode. It comes in very stark contrast to Into the Dalek last week, which was a little bit darker, a little bit moodier. But one of the great things about Doctor Who is that it's episodic in that way. You can have one adventure be completely different from the other. It's one of the great things about the show. And I really enjoyed this one. It was a little bit more humorous, a little bit more tongue-in-cheek, but I think there's absolutely room for that, especially when you've got a run of 12 episodes.
I watched it at 5 AM in my kitchen at home, and I'm not sure if I was slightly delirious, but I really enjoyed it. I thought I was going to hate this episode with a passion, but I really enjoyed it. I think Mark Gatiss got the tone right, and I think, like you say, I think in a long series run, you can get away with fun episodes like this. But I'm sure people are going to hate it. One particular scene involves the Doctor and a spoon.
Yeah.
Do you think people are going to be talking about that scene for a while? I'm sure a lot of people on the forums will be talking about it.
Maybe it's a little bit of a Sylvester McCoy influence playing in there, maybe with the spoons. Yeah, I think that's exactly the kind of scene that some people will raise a few eyebrows. But I thought why a lot of the humour in this episode worked was it was quite clever in its humour. There wasn't too much of slapstick and that kind of thing. It was quite clever the way they sort of parodied and poked fun and subverted the whole Robin Hood image, particularly the Errol Flynn movie from back in the day. This thing of Robin Hood being this kind of cackling buffoon is very much a takeoff of that movie. Yeah,
I think also Capaldi's Doctor gets away with the humour side of things a little bit more because he's a bit darker and he's a bit more grumpy and cynical. When the sort of funny stuff is and the slightly sillier stuff is going on, the fact that he's there almost acts as a buffer for people who maybe don't appreciate that element of Doctor Who so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I know Matt Smith's Doctor in particular got a bit of criticism for being zany. That was a word that was thrown around a lot. Whereas, as you say, Capaldi's Doctor is a lot grumpier, a lot moodier. He almost represents the viewer who might be looking at this episode a little bit askew, and he undercuts those moments when it does threaten to get a little bit camp by literally kind of hanging a lampshade on it and going, well, this is ridiculous.
What do you think to this week's guest stars, Ben Miller and Tom Riley as the Sheriff of Nottingham and Robin Hood? Do you think they did well?
Yeah, I really liked Tom Riley's performance, actually. I thought he kind of nailed it when he was supposed to be camp and silly, but I also think he played the emotional truth of it quite well. There's the whole idea that the reason Robin Hood's such a outrageous character is because he's got this inner tragedy, and I thought when the script demanded it, he played both sides of the character really well. Ben Miller, I think they did well to get a recognisable face in that role because the sheriff character is maybe written a little flat. He's got the whole twist with he's a cyborg and he's rebuilt by aliens, but the way the dialogue's written and the way he interacts with the other characters is pretty much villain 101.
I never thought I'd say this about something written by Mark Gatiss, but I thought the villain could have been more camp, and more ridiculous. I felt a bit sorry for Ben Miller. I thought he did well in a very short amount of time. He didn't really make much the villain.
After Diana Rigg and the Crimson Horror, you never thought you'd ask for a Gatiss villain to be more camp or more ridiculous.
One person who didn't crop up this week was Missy, who's quite a big talking point at the moment in the Doctor Who community. Were you pleased that maybe that story was put on the back burner for a little while rather than cropping up every single episode?
I was actually expecting her to turn up this week. I thought maybe Maid Marian would turn up to be Missy, and she'd turn up at the end in a dark twist and abscond with Robin Hood and take him away to this paradise, this promised land, this heaven. But that didn't happen. It was actually a very warm-hearted episode with a happy ending. So, yeah, as I say, I think it's good to give Missy a week off and let fan speculation go into overdrive.
Stephen Moffat might have given her a week off, but we're not going to give her a week off because obviously there's a huge amount of interest. We did a feature on the site where we put together theories from you guys in the forums and on the site about who Missy really is. Morgan, can you give me your opinion on a couple of the theories? There's some of the big theories. First of all, the Rani.
Yeah.
Which is the classic fan theory, I think.
Any female character in Doctor Who could well be the Rani. I'm sort of reticent to put my stamp on this because I have been very wrong about certain elements of Doctor Who before, saying Peter Capaldi wasn't going to be the Doctor. Probably my biggest blunder, but I would be very surprised if she turned out to be the Rani. I honestly don't think it's the Rani.
But there is an element, I think, of people say, oh, they can't bring back these old characters who are too niche. But I guess people wouldn't know who they were, and you wouldn't have to go, oh, and they appeared in an episode in 1987.
Exactly. If you know, you know, and if you don't, it doesn't matter. And I think that's not really the argument against it. because they've brought back the Master, they brought back K9, they brought back Sarah Jane Smith, they brought back all these.
The Great Intelligence.
Yeah,
the Great Obscure.
The Great Intelligence, exactly. You know, Ice Warriors, they brought back Silurians, they brought back a ton of, you know, relics from the past. I don't think it's an issue of recognition. I think the reason you shouldn't bring back the Rani is, in my opinion, the Rani's not a great character. I was never a big fan of the Rani. It's a character that made 2 appearances. Neither of them in particularly great adventures. Sorry, Time in the Rani. So I don't see the need to bring back the Rani when you could just create an original, more interesting villainess.
And if you want to contact Morgan to let him know why you're completely wrong about the Rani.
Don't say my email. Don't say my email. Probably find me on Twitter.
Another theory, the Master.
Yeah.
I think it's completely based solely upon the fact that Missy could be the female form of the name Master. Missy, Mistress, the Master. Do you buy into that? And I guess Michelle Gomez, if you were going to cast a female Master, she'd probably be quite appropriate.
And she's got that kind of manic energy which John Sim brought to the Master last time. I mean, maybe, I guess, you know, there's been a lot of calls for a female Doctor, maybe kind of halfway to that is a female Master. I personally don't expect it to be the Master any more than a lot of people this week were saying Ben Miller's got a bit of a sinister beard, maybe he's the Master in disguise. Turned out he wasn't. Yeah. I don't think Missy will turn out to be the Master either. My honest opinion is that it's going to be an original character, but I could be wrong, I have been before.
Other nerdy theories, Romana, the TARDIS, who else is there? Valeyard.
The Valeyard, always the Valeyard. I think we were saying before, you know, the Valeyard is another name that gets thrown out there all the time. Fans are desperate for the Valeyard to come back. When John Hurt appeared, and he was actually, you know, the Doctor, which the Valeyard is a version of the Doctor. He's like a dark incarnation of the Doctor. That was at least a valid theory. This is just people going, could be the Valeyard, yeah, so let's have a punt on that. It's probably not the Valeyard either. It's an original character, I'm sure of this, I am sure of this.
Well, the only thing obviously to mention is, before we go, is next week's episode. We've seen a few little glimpses of it. Listen, yeah, it looks pretty scary, a very different tone to last week's episode. Even the trailer, it had a bit like the episode of Luther. People coming out from under the bed and grabbing your legs.
Still scary.
It is still
I'm 27 and that still kind of freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah. Are you excited by that? What do we know about the episode?
Yeah, I am very excited for that one. It's an episode shrouded in mystery, I'd say, more than any other this series. And because of that, I think fan anticipation for it is very high. It's another perfect example of the great variety of Doctor Who, where you can go from a darker episode like Into the Dalek, then into a bit of a romp like this one, and then into something very dark and very scary like Listen. And it's going to, I think, investigate a little bit of what the Doctor gets up to when he's not travelling through time and space. That's one thing we know. It's kind of what's he get up to in his downtime, and it's also supposed to be dwelling on what scares the Doctor. What is it that scares the Doctor? And that's got to be something very scary indeed. And
what scares the Doctor? People under the bed, like everyone else.
Like everyone else. No one's immune to that, I think.
But that is all for this week. So please join us again in 7 days' time. Leave your comments underneath as usual. Any questions, please let us know and we'll try and answer them. And yeah, see you again.